All right, today I'm going to answer the age-old question, what f-stop should you use? Let's talk about it. Hello and welcome back everyone. My name is Eric Marks with FindingMiddle-earth.com, and today it's going to be all about f-stop. So it's a very confusing subject to a lot of beginners, which I understand. A lot of manual settings can be kind of confusing at first. But I don't like that a lot of the pro photographers and a lot of the photography teachers on YouTube put so much emphasis on the settings, on, if you're in this kind of lighting condition, you have to shoot in this kind of, at this f-stop. And if you're shooting a waterfall, you have to be at this shutter speed. And the truth is, if there's any beginners or intermediate or anybody watching this, because I know I have kind of a big mixture on my channel, just know that there is no right or wrong camera setting for the job that you're doing, because it's all about what you're trying to achieve out of the subject that you're shooting. Whether the subject is a person or a landscape scene or a product, whatever it is. So here's kind of something about f-stop that I want to share with everyone. By the way, f-stop is also called Aperture if you're really new to photography, so they're one and the same. So if you are Googling right now, f-stop versus Aperture, it's the exact same thing. The f-stop is your f number on your camera. So the biggest thing about f-stop that I see in photography all the time, especially with people starting out, is that they get so confused with when to use, the right f-stop, right? If I'm in a certain lighting condition, should I be using f4 and under, right? f4, f2.8, f1.8, whatever aperture your lens goes down to, or if you're shooting this big landscape, right? The traditional way is crank the f-stop down to the highest number so that you get the most depth of field, the highest number possible. So basically, the whole photography community modern day, from what I've seen, has been taught that when you're shooting portraits, you want f2.8, and if you're shooting landscape, you want f22 or f32, these huge numbers. And so I'm here to explain kind of the truth behind this, okay? F-stop has everything to do with the distance you are from your subject, okay? So let me explain a little better, okay? If I were to take a picture of my finger right now, okay? My finger is right here in front of my lens, so I'll just do it just because I'm talking about it. Let me focus there. Okay, so I just took a picture on my camera of my finger there, and I took it at f1.4, okay? And because my finger was so close to the lens, at f1.4, everything past my finger in the background is super, super blurry because I focused on just my finger. I have a very shallow depth of field on my f-stop, and so everything past my finger is going to be very blurry and soft, okay? And that's great for portraiture, and it's great for a lot of things if you want that effect. But a lot of people will translate that into, oh my gosh, if I'm shooting, a mountain range that's hundreds of feet away from me, there's no way I can shoot it at f1.4 or f2.8. It'll be so blurry. The whole scene will just be blurry. Well, that's not true, because it really depends on what you're focusing on and how far it is away from you. So if your subject, for example, let's use a mountain range, okay, is hundreds and hundreds or even thousands of feet off in the distance, and you don't have anything in the immediate foreground that you want in focus. So for example, a rock or a tree or something, if you're just like standing on the edge of a cliff and everything that you're focusing on is just so far away, you can use pretty much whatever f-stop you want, and it's going to be a great looking photo. You can use f1.4, f2.8, f22. Now, there are suggestions that I will have to you about that, and I'm going to make a future video on the sharpest point of a lens. But typically, f8 and f11 are the sharpest points of most lenses when it comes to getting the best quality out of your lens. But when it comes to just, will my photo be sharp if I take a landscape at f1.4 or 2.8 or whatever? Yes, as long as the distance is about, I don't know, more than 3 feet away from your camera. So like 3 feet out and further, you're fine using almost whatever aperture you want, as long as you're focusing on that subject that's in the distance and you're not focusing in the immediate foreground. Because I've seen countless amount of, astrophotography, for example. If you've ever shot the stars, this is the lens that I use to shoot the stars. It's a 50mm Nikon 1.4, and I shoot it at 1.4 straight up in the sky. And so many people are confused when I tell them that. Whenever I talk to beginners or people send me messages on YouTube or whatever the case, they'll always be so confused as to why I'm shooting the stars, right, which are thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away from us, and why I'm using the shallowest depth of field possible. Well, it's real simple. I want to let the most amount of light in that I possibly can to pick up the night sky, and because it's so far away in the sky, it doesn't matter what the f-stop is, because my focus is going to be at infinity. So anything past that certain, that certain distance in front of your lens, whether it be 3, 5 feet, something around there, your focus is just going to immediately default to infinity, which means that anything past that point in front of your lens, everything is going to be in focus. So past that, 3 feet marker, or it's different for each lens, but let's just say 3 to 5 feet to be safe. Past that marker, at infinity focus, everything will be in focus past that. The mountains, even if there's like 10 layers of mountains, every single mountain will be in focus. Now, yes, if you use maybe f8 or f11 versus f1.4, you might get a hair sharper of an image because most lenses are just give you better quality at those f-stops, at f11 and f8, but that doesn't mean you're going to have a blurry photo if you take it at f1.4. So many beginners I see say, oh, if you want that blurry effect, right? It's called bokeh, by the way, but if you want the blurry effect, we need to use the lowest f number we can get it to, f1.4, f1.8, 2.8, even f4. And it's just become this common misconception that I see all the time, because I teach students, I do trainings and workshops, and I see it all the time. It's a question that is asked so much, and on my YouTube channel here. And the biggest question is just, Eric, what f-stop do I use? And there is no answer. It's really about experimentation. There is no answer, because you can use an f1.4 on this big vista landscape, or you can use an f22, and you're not going to really be able to tell that much of a difference. But I guarantee you, if I, as a teacher in the workshop, would have told you f16, you'd have been like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense, great. But if I would have said f2.8, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right, because people just listen to, what they hear from these photography teachers. And I see it all the time. There's so many conflicting things on the internet, and whether you value my opinion or not, I'm just trying to help you for free here on this video, that please don't put so much emphasis on what f-stop and shutter speed you need to use. Put more emphasis on the lens choice, right? Are you going to use a wide angle or a zoom lens? On your composition, on the technique, because at the end of the day, if you have the perfect camera settings and the perfect exposure, but your composition sucks, it doesn't matter, because then you're just going to have a really sharp, bad-looking photo. This video is kind of bundled into, I guess the video is kind of about f-stops, and also at the same time, I guess, the viewing distance from f-stop to camera, but I'm kind of bundling two things I know into the video. But basically, to answer the question I get, what f-stop do you use? I don't know. There is no perfect f-stop. And then the second thing, the point that I'm trying to get across is telling you the fact about f-stops, that as long as your subject is far enough away from the lens, it really doesn't matter what f-stop you use. Again, unless you know for 100% sure that this specific lens is perfect looking at f11. Well, then great, use f11. It's all about experimenting. So whenever I get a brand new lens, I will take it out and I will shoot all the way from its maximum aperture, from f2.8, whatever it may be, all the way to the smallest aperture, from 2.8 to f22 or f32. I'll just set it on a tripod. I'll just crank the aperture, in bracket my apertures, and then I'll come back in Lightroom and view all the files at 100%. Dead center of the photo, 100%, and then I'll make my way to the corners of the photo. And that's how I check the best quality of each lens, because that's really the only way you can do it. Use your eyes, check the quality. So if you see that, wow, f8 is the sweet spot, great, use f8. If you see that this f1 point, for example, this is an f1.4 50mm Nikkor lens. the sweet spot on this lens for most things, I'm not saying for landscape, but for most things is 2.8, right? At f1.4, it's a tad soft. At f2.8, it is just unbelievably tack sharp. But I've also used it at f8 and f11 if I'm shooting landscapes. So you can use portraiture lenses or whatever to shoot landscapes. The f-stop really doesn't matter that much. That's the biggest point I'm trying to get across here. And I'm not making this video to try to make you all feel stupid. It's just that I get so many questions about that. About, Eric, what f-stop should I use? I went to, the beach today and there was this killer sunset. What f-stop do I use? There are certain techniques you can use with f-stops, which I can cover in future videos, but generally speaking, there is no f-stop. I would never tell you, oh, you're shooting a beach sunset, use f11. Oh, you're shooting a person in a park, use f2.8. There's guidelines, sure, because you know that the shallower the depth of field is the smaller f numbers, the smaller actual numbers like f2.8 and f2, f1.8, f1.4. Those will give you that beautiful buttery smooth bokeh effect that makes a subject sharp and smooths out the background. And then, of course, generally speaking, you also know that larger number apertures will get you, more in focus and sharper images. But again, it's all about where you focus, because remember, my finger right here was so close to the lens that I focused on it and everything in the back was super, super blurry and buttery smooth. But if my finger, if I was shooting someone else's finger, right, at 100 feet away, or even 100 yards away, whatever the case, then I could use the same f1.4 that I used here, and it would be sharp all the way through. It would be sharp all the way to the person's finger and past the person's finger. So it just keep that in mind. Viewing distance to the subject, from the camera to the subject, has everything to do with how the f-stop reacts on the camera. So that's the biggest piece of advice I can give you is f1.4 or f2.8 doesn't mean you're going to have a blurry photo if you shoot a landscape. Because I've had tons of people ask me that. So don't be afraid to experiment. That's the biggest point I'm trying to get across here. Experiment. Don't be afraid to take your own camera, leave your house, get away from the computer, get away from YouTubers like me and all the other people that that do all these tips. We are great to watch if you want some quick tips, but I'm not telling you to base your entire photography career sitting in your office watching me all day, and I'll be the first one to tell you that. I'm just here to help you guys, just help to provide some free content, to kind of provide guidelines to help you. But best advice I can give you is pause my video right now, walk out your door and take your camera and go have fun, experiment, and then come back on the computer and see how each f-stop and shutter speed affected, each scene that you shot and each subject, because it's going to be very different results based on where you're shooting and where you're focusing, and that's how you'll know. All the biggest things in life that we've learned come from experiences. So go experience it and then come back and watch my videos, and I hope you learned something today. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. If you would like to stay up to date on all of my latest photography videos and adventures, click the big subscribe button below. And if you would like to find out more about me and how to become a great photographer, visit my website at findingmiddleearth.com.